Hi everyone. So I did my presentation on higher education outcomes for Syrian refugees. For a little bit of context, the Syrian war started on March 5th, 2011, and since then, 13.5 million people have been internally and externally displaced, and actually 50% of refugees are under the age of 18. So, humanitarians and researchers are interested in different outcomes of these young people. And in my paper, I looked at the outcome of higher education. So, higher education refers to tertiary education or education after high school or the host country equivalent. And in the US alone, in 2019, 38% of individuals older than 25 had graduated from college. According to the Association of American Colleges and Universities, immigrants and second generation college students make up only 20% of students in higher education, and only 3% of refugees have access to higher education. And so for my paper, I'm going to look at the outcome of higher education as it relates to ecological systems theory, created by Yuri Bronfenbrenner. In class, we learned about ecological systems theory, and it is an influential theory of human development that says that development is influenced by different types of environmental systems, as listed here. Don't worry, we'll get into them as we move on. So, to begin, we have the microsystem, which is an individual's immediate surrounding environment. In my paper, I discussed 3 different microsystem level factors that may have an impact on individuals' outcome of higher education. These are gender, language barriers, and financial resources. So, for example, as we learned, gender biases and discrimination and the impacts of those experiences in men and women are fundamentally different through the migration and displacement journey. And in Syria, for example, there are gender norms that may prevent women from getting an equal education as a man. So that's a microsystem level factor that may impact outcomes of higher education. Moving on to the mesosystem, which is the relationship between 2 systems. In my paper, I discussed 3 examples, being lack of recognition, invalidation, and financial hardships. For example, individuals who experience financial hardships are expressed through their microsystem, may be less likely to afford higher education and all the additional costs associated with it. And then moving on to the exosystem, which is environments not directly experienced by the individual. I looked at lack of initiatives by educators, messages from home and host communities, and blending learning initiatives. Lack of initiative, for example, to put more effort into non-native language speakers was found in research where refugee students reported feeling like they were falling behind due to the fact that their teacher was talking too fast or grading too harshly in a language that was not their own. So the lack of initiative to put more effort into students who were not native speakers was an exosystem factor or level that impacted outcomes of higher education. And moving down, we have the macro system and the chronosystem. The macro system is cultural and societal contexts that shape the individual. I think that it's important to mention here that there are 2 cultures that are impacting an individual's macro system, this being their home culture and the host culture. In my paper, I mentioned negative attitudes towards refugees, in-group alienation, and university regulations and support programs. Negative attitudes about refugees can impact policy and decision-making, such as it has with the refugee laws throughout history in U.S. law. And finally, for the chronosystem, I have which is the historical context and changes that occur over time for an individual. In my paper, I've written about the Muslim ban executive order in the US in 2017 and the Syrian civil war. So the overarching historical context of these 2 events, and many more, have created harsher conditions for Syrian refugees to obtain higher education outcomes. So that is all, and here's my infographic in total, if you can see it. All right. Let me know if you have any questions.